Okay, I began the development of the St. Paul Arboretum, as I like to call it, almost 9 years ago, shortly after I moved down to the Dayton area. In the Orthodox Church, we have a prayer asking God to bless those who love the beauty of thy house, and I like to say both inside and outside. I began the work shortly after a young man in the parish, as part of his Eagle Scout project, developed an icon trail in which he cleared a path through the area of the wooded area that's near the church. The church has some 9 acres, 6 of it was wooded, overgrown with honeysuckle, grapevines, poison ivy, and thistles. Now the first thing to be done was to clear the land of those invasive species. And I decided to begin the work because of the trail that the Eagle Scout had constructed was so surrounded by honeysuckle that the view was not very good. And I began clearing that area about 3 years ago when some of the neighbors complained that there was a lot of trash there. Well, other neighbors had used that as a dump. Now, in order to clear up the trash, I needed to eliminate the honeysuckle that was covering it. That then in turn created a lot of brush piles. When I first started working on the property to create an arboretum, there really wasn't much a diversity when it comes to the types of trees. There are quite a few box elder, black walnut, cherry, and silver maple. Now, since I've been planting all those trees, flowers and shrubs and whatnot at my own expense, I do that on cheap as much as possible. Many of the trees are volunteers that I find in the flower beds in the vegetable garden in my own backyard. And so I keep an eye out for perhaps that area along the creek is the most picturesque, particularly with their wildflowers growing along there and water flows over rocks and very soothing sound of flowing water to be heard. There's all kinds of wildlife that seem to enjoy the property. There are a number of groundhog colonies. Rabbits are a common sight. Deer are all too common. They're a beautiful sight. There used to be an owl that patrolled the area. There were a number of red foxes that were seen regularly, but most recently there's been a large hawk. In the retaining pond, there are often ducks, there's frogs and such. The Arboretum is a rolling area where the little Sugar Creek cuts through is a wetland area. To mark off the Arboretum as parish property, I have erected a number of crosses. In addition to the crosses, there are a number of icons and shrines posted along what I call the icon loop. There are a number of trails. One is the inner trail, the icon loop, and then there's an outer trail going around the entire property. And many of these trails are lined with red buds and also forsythia. Older people are particularly welcome because there has been a problem of teenagers coming onto the grounds to party. Sometimes in the past I found beer cans and such evidence of partying, as well as an occasional condom. Junior high boys sometimes vandalize, and that can be a bit discouraging when they pull up stakes that prevent the deer, the bucks from pushing over the trees and ruining the trees when they're in rut. Deer are perhaps the biggest problem that I have. It's necessary to put fencing around many of the trees or stakes, otherwise the deer will either eat them or push them over and break them down. So that's always an issue I have to deal with. Introduced and planted around 150 redbud trees alone. I lined the walking trails with those. And so in the month of April, in a few years, it'll be even more beautiful than it is now. Also planted quite a number of tulip trees. Also quite a number of different kinds of conifers, pine, spruce, Canadian hemlock, cypress, and then a great many different deciduous trees. Several different kinds of maples, noted for their very colorful leaves. A sugar maple, red maple, orange leaf maple, which in the fall will really brighten up the arboretum. Also, there were a number of different kinds of oak trees I planted. Some of the more unusual trees that I've introduced are such as the mimosa, a witch hazel tree. I did an Elder House program in Kentucky a number of years ago. In the month of October, we were taken on a tour, a walk or hike into the woods, and we were shown a witch hazel tree, and we were told it was the last tree of the forest to bloom, blooming at the end of the month of October. So at that time I decided I wanted to have one of those. And I also look for bargains at the end of the season from places like Myers, Lowe's, and Home Depot. Occasionally people donate trees as well. In fact, I was walking the grounds on a Sunday afternoon with some friends from church, and I suddenly saw a owl or a hawk fly up to a branch, and dangling from his claws was a rather large snake. It reminded me of a scene on a flag with an eagle with a snake in his talons. Seeing that hawk with the snake was something I had never seen before. All the clearing I did with the honeysuckle, grapevines, and such, and dead trees created quite a number of brush piles. The area nearest the creek now has quite a number of brush piles, and it's just too expensive to chip them. And some people ask about those brush piles and wonder about getting rid of them. And to those who seem to be bothered by the presence of brush piles, I say just think of them as animal refuges. As refuges for various animals, such as rabbits and box turtles and various other critters that find these brush piles a way to escape from their predators. More and more people from the parish and the community have expressed their appreciation for the park, or what I call the St. Paul's Arboretum. Some have asked that I take them on a tour of the property. Some members of the parish have told me they could come to walk around on the Arboretum to relieve stress, get in touch with nature, find a prayerful atmosphere. It serves a purpose both for the church and for the neighboring community. Many visitors may want to sit there and read or just enjoy the natural scene. Let's walk along the creek now.